Ramón Valdez, sent 15 Cuban soldiers to execute Bumpy Johnson. Only 3 walked out, and the message they delivered made the most feared military commander in New York flee to Havana and never return. September 21st, 1954. Bumpy Johnson was outnumbered, 15-1. Ramón Valdez had sent his deadliest crew, Colonel Martinez the Executioner, Captain Rodriguez the Wolf, Lieutenant Morales the Silent, 12 more Cuban Revolutionary War veterans, whose names were spoken in fear from Havana to Miami. They cornered Bumpy in the Cotton Club basement. No witnesses, no way out. Bumpy was 49 years old, established king of Harlem but facing military professionals. Valdez was the most connected Cuban commander in New York. Everyone expected the same ending: Bumpy Johnson dead in a basement. But what Valdez didn't know: Bumpy Johnson understood revolution better than most Cubans. 2 hours later, only 3 of those 15 men walked out alive, and they delivered a message that made Ramón Valdez abandon his empire and flee to Cuba forever. This is the story of the night. Bumpy Johnson turned soldiers into revolutionaries. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand Ramón Valdez. He was colonel in Batista's army, decorated veteran of the Cuban War of Independence. But by 1954, Valdez had become something else entirely. He was Batista's drug operations chief in New York, controlling the flow of cocaine and heroin from Havana to Harlem. Valdez had built a military-style organization. His soldiers weren't street gangsters. They were trained killers who'd fought in actual wars. Men who knew discipline, tactics, and loyalty to the chain of command. But there was a problem: Bumpy Johnson. Bumpy had been interfering with Valdez's drug operations since 1953, not by fighting them directly, but by offering alternatives. Clean numbers games, legitimate businesses, protection from drug dealers. Bumpy was giving Harlem residents choices, and many were choosing to stay away from Cuban drugs. This wasn't just business competition to Valdez. This was insubordination. A black American challenging Cuban military authority was an insult to everything he represented. March 1954. Valdez sent diplomats to Bumpy. The message was clear: stay out of drug interdiction or face military consequences. Bumpy sent back a response that made Valdez's blood boil: tell the colonel that Harlem protects its own people. April 1954. Valdez tried economic warfare. He pressured Cuban restaurant owners to refuse service to Bumpy's people. He convinced dock workers to delay shipments to Bumpy's businesses. He spread rumors that Bumpy was working with communist revolutionaries in Cuba. Bumpy responded by opening a community center that provided drug addiction treatment, free of charge, in the heart of Valdez's territory. 1954. Valdez escalated. He sent 8 soldiers to destroy the community center. They came back unconscious, tied up, and dumped in Central Park with a note: soldiers protect people, they don't hurt them. By September 1954, Valdez was getting pressure from Batista himself. His inability to control the Harlem problem was making him look incompetent. Cuban military officers didn't tolerate incompetence. So Valdez made a decision that would end his career. He assembled 15 of his most loyal soldiers, men who'd served under him in Cuba, who'd followed his orders without question for years, veterans who'd killed for their country and would kill for their commander. The plan was simple: corner Bumpy Johnson, execute him publicly, make it clear that Cuban authority was not to be challenged. September 20th, 1954, the 15 soldiers arrived at Valdez's warehouse in the Bronx. These weren't typical enforcers. Colonel Martinez had fought at the Battle of Santiago. Captain Rodriguez had led cavalry charges against Spanish forces. They were warriors, not criminals. Valdez briefed them personally. Bumpy Johnson has become a threat to Cuban interests in New York. He must be eliminated quickly and efficiently. What are his crimes? Asked Lieutenant Morales. Insubordination, interference with military operations, disrespect for Cuban authority. The soldiers accepted their orders. They'd been following Valdez's commands for years. They trusted his judgment completely. September 21st. 1954. 10:15 p.m. 15 Cuban soldiers surrounded the Cotton Club. They moved with military precision, cutting off escape routes, disabling security, positioning themselves for a coordinated assault. Colonel Martinez picked the lock on the basement door. The 15 men filed down the stairs in perfect formation. Professional soldiers executing a military operation. They found Bumpy sitting at a table, reading a book, sipping coffee. He looked up as they formed a circle around him. 15 rifles pointed at his chest. Ramón Valdez sends his regards, Colonel Martinez announced. Bumpy closed his book slowly. He looked around the circle of soldiers, studying their faces carefully. Then he spoke in perfect Spanish. Quince soldados, para matar al hombre desarmado, Bumpy said. 15 soldiers, to kill one unarmed man. The soldiers froze. Well, Bumpy Johnson speaking Spanish was unexpected, but what he said next changed everything. ¿Es esto lo que José Martí habría querido? Bumpy continued. Is this what José Martí would have wanted? Colonel Martinez lowered his rifle slightly. What do you know about Martí? Sé que luchó por la libertad de su pueblo, Bumpy replied. I know he fought for the freedom of his people, not for the oppression of other peoples. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. You dare speak about our national hero? I speak about revolution because I understand revolution, Bumpy said, standing slowly. You fought the Spanish to free Cuba. I fight oppression to protect Harlem. We're both revolutionaries. Lieutenant Morales was confused. But you're interfering with Cuban operations. I'm protecting my community from drugs that destroy families, Bumpy corrected. The same way you protected Cuba from colonizers who destroyed your country. Bumpy reached into his jacket. 15 rifles aimed at him. But he moved slowly, carefully. He pulled out a small object and placed it on the table. It was a Cuban Revolutionary coin, bearing the image of José Martí. A friend gave me this in prison, Bumpy said quietly. Cuban revolutionary named Carlos Méndez. Fought alongside Maceo in the War of Independence. Spent his last years in Alcatraz for fighting American imperialism. Colonel Martinez stared at the coin. Carlos Méndez. You knew him? He was my captain during the war. Taught me everything about being a soldier. He taught me something too, Bumpy said. He taught me that real revolutionaries fight for justice, not for money. They protect the weak, not serve the powerful. The basement went completely silent. 15 Cuban veterans suddenly questioning everything they thought they knew. What are you saying? Captain Rodriguez asked. I'm saying you're not serving the revolution anymore. You're serving Batista. And Batista is everything Martí fought against. Lieutenant Morales lowered his weapon. But Valdez is our commander. Valdez is a drug dealer, Bumpy replied. He's using Cuban soldiers to protect criminal operations. He's dishonoring everything you fought for. Colonel Martinez looked around at his men. Professional soldiers, but also Cubans who'd grown up on stories of revolutionary heroes. What proof do you have? Martinez asked. Bumpy gestured to a briefcase in the corner. Bank records, drug shipment, manifests, payment receipts. Everything Valdez has been hiding from you. For the next hour, 15 Cuban soldiers examined evidence that their commander had been using them to protect a criminal empire. Drug money, corruption payments, connections to American organized crime. He told us we were protecting Cuban interests, Captain Rodriguez said quietly. You were protecting Valdez's bank account, Bumpy replied. While he got rich, you risked your lives and your honor. Colonel Martinez studied the revolutionary coin on the table. What do you propose we do? Take this coin back to Valdez. Tell him that real Cuban revolutionaries don't serve corrupt commanders. Tell him that if he wants Bumpy Johnson dead, he should remember what Martí said about fighting your own battles. One by one, the 15 soldiers filed back up the basement stairs, but not all of them. 12 men left the Cotton Club that night. 3 stayed behind. Why? Bumpy asked. Because you reminded us what we used to fight for, Colonel Martinez replied. The next morning, Colonel Martinez walked into Valdez's office and placed the Cuban Revolutionary coin on his desk. Where is Bumpy Johnson? Valdez demanded. Alive. What do you mean, alive? I sent 15 soldiers. Martinez's voice was steel. You sent 15 revolutionaries to kill a man who fights for his people the same way we once fought for ours. Valdez stood up, his face red with rage. How dare you question my orders? How dare you dishonor the revolution? Martinez replied. Bumpy Johnson showed us bank records. Valdez, we know about the drug money. We know about the corruption payments. The room went deadly quiet. Valdez's other soldiers watched as Martinez delivered the message that would destroy their commander. Bumpy Johnson offers you a choice. Face the revolutionary tribunal we're convening, or leave New York and never return. And if I refuse? Martinez looked around the room at Valdez's remaining soldiers, men who'd now heard about the corruption, who understood they'd been betrayed. Then you'll discover that Cuban revolutionaries don't serve corrupt commanders. 3 days later, Ramón Valdez boarded a plane to Havana. He never returned to New York. The 3 soldiers who stayed behind became trusted allies in Bumpy's organization. They helped establish drug treatment programs, veteran support services, and community protection networks. And that Cuban revolutionary coin? Bumpy kept it on his desk for the rest of his life. A reminder that revolutionary spirit transcends nationality, race, and borders. September 21st, 1954. 15 soldiers walked into a basement to commit execution. 12 walked out, having remembered what they really fought for. And the 3 who stayed helped build something better. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemy. It's reminding them who they used to be. If this story of revolution recognizing revolution moved you, hit that subscribe button. Drop a like if you believe real soldiers fight for justice, not corruption, and comment below. What would you have done in that basement?